Welcome everyone, this is Andres Restart, and today we are talking about the theorized and rumored The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake. We have some new info that seems to be suggesting that Nintendo does indeed have some sort of plan regarding Ocarina of Time in the year of 2024, and this could potentially mean we see some type of announcement for this theorized remake. But also, there's some info out there that I think a lot of people have missed that seem to be supporting this idea even more so, and it goes against a lot of the counter-arguments of this actually happening. So that's what we're getting into today. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, leaving a like is also super helpful, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So I've already made a series of videos about this potential Ocarina of Time remake. I like to refer to it as a theory because it is a theory of mine. I am predicting it to happen down the road, but there are some recent and also old rumors on this potential remake. I'm not going to be talking about all of the different details we discussed in the past because that would be a much longer video and we've already discussed in the past several times. So I will be putting a video in the little eye thing at the top and also in the end screen if you're interested in the other details that may be supporting this idea of an Ocarina of Time remake. But it will sum up some of the things that we've discussed in the past, just so we have those in mind in conjunction with everything else we'll be discussing in this video. So the core idea behind the theory here is that whenever Nintendo has ended a generation with a big Zelda game, like Tears of the Kingdom last year, typically in that first year to year and a half, Nintendo revisits a 3D Zelda in some way, shape, or form to bring in the Zelda fanbase early on and also has something that showcases the system pretty darn well, like Wind Waker HD, like Ocarina of Time 3D. So based off that historical precedent, it does seem likely that Nintendo would revisit some type of 3D Zelda early on for their next generation console, what we've been calling the Switch 2, but there have been some recent interviews from the producer of Zelda himself, Eiji Aonuma, that seem to be supporting this idea even more so, and that it could be related to Ocarina of Time. In one interview, and I'm paraphrasing here, Aonuma talks about how he doesn't think too many Zelda fans of today would know who Rauru is from Ocarina of Time. This interview was in reference to the character and not the town from Zelda 2. And so the possible implications there is that he doesn't think that there is a modern enough version of Ocarina of Time for fans to understand today, but also that he finds Rauru from Ocarina of Time to be something worthy of note. And then in an even more recent interview, Aonuma was literally asked about the potential of an Ocarina of Time remake, and he straight up said, no comment. But what makes his response even more interesting is that Aonuma has also been asked recently about the possibility of a Zelda Dungeon Maker, and he shot down the idea, saying it wouldn't really be much of a good fit because of the recent Tears of the Kingdom. So the producer of the Zelda series is shooting down some ideas, but when asked about Ocarina of Time remake, which has been heavily rumored and discussed lately, not so much. He's leaving that one open for the speculation of fans. So that's the brief summary of some of the more tangible things that aren't even rumor related that support this idea of it happening. But before getting into the new info, I know some people will be providing counter arguments to this idea of Ocarina of Time remake happening because Nintendo has already done Ocarina of Time 3D. Ignoring one of the interviews I just mentioned that seems to suggest that that wouldn't really hold this back, Ocarina of Time 3D for Nintendo 3DS was a remaster and not a remake. And also, that came out back in the year of 2011. It's 2024, it's nearly been 13 years. And Ocarina of Time 3D came out 13 years after the original release. But for those that doubt that Ocarina of Time 3D is considered a remaster and not a remake, thus weakening the idea of Nintendo revisiting this game, let me point you to an Iwata Asks from way back when the game came out, the 3DS version. So I'll be reading you this chunk of this interview that seems to suggest pretty well what Ocarina of Time 3D was. Modia. The last year has been one mad scramble. I think the staff did a great job, and I think the enthusiasm of the original developers came across through the old source code. There were about 7 programs for one boss, with regard to incomplete portions. Someone had written a note saying, I'm relying on whoever's next. I wonder who that meant. Iwata. Huh? Was it really such a note, like a time capsule? The source code contains feelings from the past. Aonuma. It's less a time capsule than a curse. Everyone laughs. Modia. When the staff members saw the source code, they got pumped up and the development fell into a nice groove. Something that really pleased me was that when we submitted the first ROM and everyone at Nintendo said, "Ah, this is the Legend of Zelda," that helped me. Because of that, I thought this is the right way to go and felt at ease. Aonuma. I was surprised then at how much you could do in such a short period of time. Ishii. Aonuma-san. When we saw everyone enjoying the ROM, it really encouraged us. Seeing those happy expressions on the faces of the original staff members strengthened our feeling that we can make a good version of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 3DS system. Iwata. I see. How about you, Ikuta-san? Ikuta. I don't think releasing the exact same game would have been very pleasing to me either. My own feelings and environment have changed over the years. So if I were to play the same game, it wouldn't move me the same way. But with this game, it's like the same feeling from before is in my hands, but as something new. I want as many people as possible to experience that. And so after going through this chunk of the interview, they mentioned working and building upon the source code multiple times. And so basically what that means is that Ocarina of Time 3D was a remaster. They even talk about how they were getting things done in a short amount of time. Building off of the source code, remastering the game, enhancing certain elements of the game that need to be remastered as opposed to other parts that don't, that's what it is, a remaster and not a remake. And so this is important when people talk about Nintendo having done Ocarina of Time 3D already, because typically in the industry, we will see a remaster from a company, and maybe sometimes they may repurpose some things for certain collector's editions, but in terms of a dedicated effort, they're not going to remaster a remaster, but they might remake the original game. And that's the idea here. Nintendo has not remade the original game yet. So with that all said, what's the new information that seems to be suggesting that Nintendo has some sort of plan for Ocarina of Time in 2024? Well, if you haven't heard yet, we got a new rumor, and a credible one, that Nintendo is planning a Legend of Zelda Deku Tree Lego set. This rumor actually exists from the past because, well, it's not even just a rumor, it's actually been leaked. The Lego set is supposed to be a 2-in-1, the Ocarina of Time Deku Tree and the Breath of the Wild Deku Tree. Now, when this leak was initially discussed, anyone who shared actual imagery here had their videos taken down or copyright striked, so there will be no official imagery of that leaked Lego set. Can't do that. Our friend Nintendo Prime, for example, did that and had it leaked, and he has been discussing this Lego story as well, for example, so if you want more info, check him out. But this rumor, coming from 1414 Falcon Fan on Instagram, is saying that the Lego Zelda set is coming in 2024. It will be a 2,500 piece count. It'll be about the Great Deku Tree, and the potential release is September of 2024, and also they use imagery of the Deku Tree from Ocarina of Time. And so people have been saying that this source here is credible, and when I saw GameXplain talk about this Lego set rumor, they noted that there is a history of them being reliable, and they brought up the example of them putting out a rumor for the Piranha Plant before it was actually revealed. And so I took a look at this Instagram page and looked at their different posts, and I saw that they were talking about Mario, Zelda, and Animal Crossing before these things have been announced, and one of them did include talking about a Piranha Plant Lego set on July 7th of 2023. And then later in 2023, we got the official announcement, November 6th, of this Piranha Plant Lego set. So it seems that this person, when it comes to putting out information about future Lego sets, they are pretty darn reliable. So we are getting a Deku Tree Lego set in 2024, and it seems to at least be about Ocarina of Time, potentially also Breath of the Wild. A Breath of the Wild related Deku Tree set makes sense just because, well, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are pretty relevant right now. But Ocarina of Time isn't. And so revisiting Ocarina of Time, that's odd. And also considering that Falcon Fan here is including Ocarina of Time imagery as opposed to Breath of the Wild imagery for the Deku Tree, that at least somewhat supports the idea that they think there might be more focus on Ocarina of Time. So this idea is odd that Nintendo would revisit this unless they have a bigger plan here. And we've discussed in the past how Nintendo does like to put out different things related to certain updates for a game series before it happens. One of the best examples being Pikmin. We had Pikmin 3 Deluxe, we had the mobile game Pikmin Bloom, we had the various different Pikmin we saw throughout the Super Nintendo World Park, and then eventually that all led to the announcement of Pikmin 4. And so if we're seeing an Ocarina of Time Lego set here, that could be used as additional sort of cross-promotion. Maybe suggesting we see some type of Ocarina of Time remake announcement in the year of 2024. Now, when I've talked about this theory of mine that Nintendo's going to remake this game, I've been sort of stressing that while it is possible we see it in 2024, my expectation is more likely sometime in 2025, if not even a little bit later, just because Nintendo seems to be having longer generations now, and some of their bigger releases are a little bit more spread out. They have other things in between, so they have a better lineup overall, but that's kind of been my expectation here. However, when thinking about how Nintendo may want to market Nintendo Switch 2, if one of the ideas is to have some sort of major Zelda release early on to bring in the Zelda fanbase early on, then it does make sense to showcase this game. And if this is going to be a really impressive visual remake, then that's a great way to showcase the abilities of the system. Now, I still don't think it makes sense for the game to come out in 2024 because we have things that are supposedly coming out really early on, like 3D Mario, maybe being the launch title. And then also, there's everything we've been discussing with Metroid Prime 4 and how that's seemingly likely going to be a cross-gen title for this year as well. And so, if the Switch 2 is coming on the second half of the year, and you have both 3D Mario and Metroid Prime 4, two single-player, hardcore-centric Nintendo games, I don't know if Nintendo wants to squeeze in a third single-player, hardcore-centric Nintendo game where there will be a lot of overlap with these other two series. I think that's something they may want to save for a bit later, sometime in 2025. And I'm gonna stick to that, but maybe they could announce Ocarina of Time Remake. Maybe they could announce it in a late year September Nintendo Direct once we already have the Switch 2 and we're already enjoying the system, just to give us something else to be excited about for the year beyond. I think that makes a decent amount of sense. Now, just to entertain the possibility of Ocarina of Time Remake maybe coming out in 2024, we have seen Nintendo put out Super Mario 64 DS as a launch title for the Nintendo DS, so a remake of an old N64 Mario game to push their big handheld system that went on to become their best-selling system of all time. The Switch 2 could be something very similar, and so maybe Nintendo may want to go with something like that. There is at least somewhat of a history there, but I think 3D Mario or some combination of Metroid Prime 4 and a more multiplayer, socially centric kind of game may make more sense, but still, I don't think it's straight up impossible, and it's at least worth having a bit of discussion on it. Regardless, I do find it interesting that we are seeing more evidence here of Nintendo having a marketing plan that has at least somewhat to do with Ocarina of Time in 2024, even though that game came out in 1998. So I'm feeling good about this one. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.